Yo, that was a fun show.
That was, yeah.
Like you know, it was a fun show because we just never even got to the topic at hand. Like it was just we had so much to riff on that we never even got to the topic at hand. It was cool that Kale jumped on it. We're gonna have to do all sorts of thumbnail work and title descriptions.
I think like a show with him and I in the future would be really interesting. Like a real conversation from like two different perspectives of, especially from the generational thing.
Well, I'm always trying to say let's get like the other Zoomers on with you, but I think that's a better conversation. I think you and Kale would be a better conversation.
Kyle Whittington's in the chat, and he says he's just here to get banned on his very first day of being a supporter. We can accomplish that real quick, Kyle. Give me a second.
Oh man,
Don says it's very strange that we never got to the topic.
Yeah, very, very out of place for us, right?
Yeah,
we never do that. What?
Avoiding topics, avoiding main topics.
We weren't even talking about like Nick's revolver this time, or
exactly.
The only thing I hate about locals is that we can't bring the comments up on screen.
I mean,
the only thing I hate about it.
We can, but it's really a pain in the butt to do. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you could share the whole screen, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the only way I think.
Let's bring it up. Leave them like that because I don't care.
Well, I can. Oh. Well, that
showed out, Rob.
Screw me. I guess.
No, bring
Hold
it
on.
Leave it like that. Who cares?
I mean, we could do. Nah, I don't.
I think I like the side view better.
Oh, there goes me again.
Bro, why is it discriminatory against you, bro?
Just leave it like that. I want to be able to see everybody's comments, so I don't have to keep looking down at my phone and stuff. Oh, wait, but when we play the clips, they're going to lose it.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into the clips.
I think I can.
Man, you are a tech whiz.
Is it changing stuff like right as I do this?
At the moment, nothing's happening.
No, I just see Mel Gibson.
Okay, did that not make
that mustache, bro, that he has? So good.
There, that makes it a little bit better.
That's better. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, but let's play the clips and then we'll pop the comments back up.
Okay, what are we playing?
I'll just start with the beginning, man. It was. Okay. You know, I just like the way we're talking about things differently than they're typically talked about.
No one talks about things the way you talk about things.
Oh, that's hopefully that makes us unique.
Okay.
But that thing is, I think, as grave a threat to humanity as there has ever been. And when I say that I think this religious revival is an attempt to reboot the last thing that worked, that is not in and of itself an argument against it. In fact, I would argue that's probably an ancient historical pattern for our species.
Can we play,
and the only reason that I don't think that's necessary.
I'm just playing them in the order they came through, dude.
But I think
that thing.
Okay, hold on.
Was that how long was that clip?
That's 2:30, 2:29.
Go with the 5-minute one. There's one like 5 minutes and change.
Okay.
I mean, we'll pause it a bunch and.
Big trouble. But that said, I do feel, let's say there's a God. That God has given me an analytical mind and an upbringing that cultivated it, has given me an almost unbearable amount of evidence of the evolution of creatures, and has placed me in history at a position where I can tap into that evidence and I can see what it implies, maybe even beyond where my field can see often. So here's the question. Wouldn't it be reasonable if you had that perspective that religion is not a bad thing. In fact, it's been a profoundly good thing frequently. It's done a lot of evil as well. But the point is, it is part of an adaptive state, every bit as much as an eye or a wing. It seems to me that if there is a God, that God must want me. I don't want to say atheist, because again, I don't use that term for myself because I'm angry at other atheists. But it seems to me that God wants me as a non-believer, if there is one.
Yes.
Is that a fair thing to conclude from your perspective in light of the world that he has presented me with?
I can only say that from my perspective, that, and this is actually someone called Byron Katie said this, God is reality. And so everything that happens is God's will, and all of the sort of rather weary and juvenile arguments about why do bad things happen, and this is where it's nice to borrow from the post-structuralists and try to analyze, scrutinize, and unpack what good and bad might mean, and whether or not we can see the entire picture, or whether we're in such a position to even make that observation. Certainly what I'm experiencing is that there is a function to suffering, that as Simone Weil says, that Christianity may not be a way out of suffering, but it certainly sanctifies suffering.
Certainly places it in an important context.
Sacralizes and see, I guess the last conversation even comparable to this one I've had is with Jordan Peterson, and you know him, of course, and I love him. And I've worked out what the collective unconscious is. It's AI. I'm like, oh God, here we go. We can wait for 10 minutes.
I love that he's like, oh boy, here we go.
And I talk to people. Wow, who was that guy? You probably know him, Dr. Nels, who can tell you how sort of nutrition and toxicity are being used to induce states that are correlatives of sociological forms of conditioning, that both our nutritional inputs and toxicity inputs are creating states of compliance that are amenable to and function alongside sociological measures to generate a compliant zombie population, is one of these sort of terms. I was thinking, wow, everyone just uses various metrics and nomenclature to analyze the various challenges that confront them. Now, if you are a devout Christian or a devout Buddhist or a devout Muslim or a devout atheist, then you're sort of saying, this is my position. You might be an atheist. I'm a Christian. You might be a Christian. I'm taking a definitive position. It's a personal position. And it's in a set, as I say, it seems to have resourced me, but I certainly don't feel that there is, I'm not like bemused, baffled, confused, or concerned by your well undergirded and researched atheism. I'm just, in a sense, as you speak, thinking about what I've read in sort of C.S. Lewis or Thomas Aquinas or whatever that sort of might be useful in helping us with that. And in a way, many of the what I've felt, Brett, is a kind of, it's a sort of like a kind of homecoming that's very kind of, feels kind of folky. But like when it comes to tackling how I would usually oppose atheism, I would say, if there are resolute and absolute states that can be determined and diagnosed through the analytical mind, what is it that happens to that mind when you consume ayahuasca or DMT in large doses, and planes of reality are suddenly exposed to you that seem to defy our preceding paradigm? And what I suppose there, and this is sort of very almost, I can't believe that I would lay something so rudimentary before you, not pearls before swine, but some kind of opposite of Dorothy Parker's famous maxim, is that, Brett, like everything we're discussing is on the basis of the limitations of our sensory instruments and our knowledge base. And if you were to assume a set of instruments that could determine subtler vibrations and forms of light and forms of information, then whole new paradigms would immediately open up to us. And I think that's what the religious experience is. It's the immediate sacralization of the profane and the immediate intervention, of a set of data that is not accessible with this set of instruments.
Well, if I might,
you can go there. Like, you see what he's saying there? He's like like Brett, you're just thinking everything is observable through he thinks everything's observable, and you could just well because God has revealed God, if God is real, wouldn't he want me to be an atheist? It's like such a preposterous thing, because he thinks because God has laid out this design before him. It's like, Brett, you see a design before you. What do you mean? Like there's something intelligible, and evolution must have a purpose if it's evolving the way it is. I don't know. It's just a very unique way to talk about it with an atheist like Brett Weinstein, I thought.
Yeah, they're definitely, I think, approaching it from very different perspectives. Like, I love the way that Russell Brand was like, Christianity sanctifies suffering. That's actually very beautiful. I've never really thought about it in that context. But yeah, that's right. It does sanctify. It does give it meaning in the end. I've talked a little bit about that on my show recently, but I like that phraseology. But I think the way that I would have approached it if I was Russell, again, it would have been full Thomistic mode, but it would have just been, okay, the argument that you laid out of there's all this evolutionary data that we got, right? How am I not supposed to conclude that there's not a God because of that?
Yeah.
Okay, but then the reality is, like, who sets all that off into motion? Something has to start it. And that something, that first cause, has to be rationally uncaused, because there's just no infinite chain of events that we can observe. And so my issue with that is, again, it's like I think the new atheism, and you guys can probably remember this very well. Remember when it was like Dawkins, all of his apologetics for the most part weren't up against Thomism. He did pick out Aquinas a bit, but not so much against Thomism or anything. It was always against like the fuddy-duddy evangelical fundamentalists.
Yeah,
of the Deep
yeah,
South.
they always go for that.
Right, where they were like, yeah, you don't even believe that dinosaurs exist, so therefore you're an idiot. I'm going to just basically mop the floor with you. And the reality is it's just like, yeah, unless there's a first cause, then it doesn't really matter whether you want to say it's creation or evolution. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think this new thing that Brett's trying to do is say, okay, there's an evolutionary purpose to religion.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, there's something that is beneficial to humanity, because look, they're all seeing something pop up around them. They're all seeing religion pop up around them. They're all starting to recognize, even guys like Joe Rogan are starting to say it. It's like there's something innate about human beings that they need to worship. Like they're really starting to recognize this, because they see they got rid of Christianity and all this other religious imagery is popping up all over everywhere. I mean, we see it all around us, and we talk about it all the time on this show. But I think they're trying to make sense of that. So they're trying to put it in the context of evolution. So I've heard them talk like, how could the idea of self-sacrifice be brought into evolution? Because if our primary mode is reproduction and
survival, etc.,
survival of the species, right? How is it that you have all these modes of sacrifice? Like there's something so unique about sacrifice. You see it through every culture in human history. They sacrifice animals, and it's always a creation story that goes along with it, and there's these gods that they have to offer something to. What is it about the human person that they just know they have to sacrifice something?
That's a very good question. I think that actually, if he's going to try to say that this is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't seen this entire clip, but like if he's saying that evolution produced this kind of religious sentimentality in our species, the problem with that is fundamentally this. If that is the case, there's still no full reason for it. Because notice how all humanity, all tribes, all nations, all people groups have this innate desire in them, right? But it's a singular desire to worship something, right? It's a singular desire, which tells me there has to be a single cause for that thing. It can't just evolve. Plus, as you pointed out, this doesn't make sense, because if everything is about just kind of survival of the fittest, reproduce, etc., then why do we slaughter animals for sacrifice? And then why do we have moral codes? Because rationally it would be, why don't we just kind of do what we want? Why aren't we doing whatever the heck we want?
And if it's evolutionary, why would an atheist want to be an atheist when
Exactly.
When
evolutionarily beneficial. Yeah,
right.
It should be evolutionary beneficial. Why are you bucking against this so hard, Brett? If it's evolutionarily beneficial to be religious, I just think they're just trying to find a box to put it in somehow without.
Because they realized they can't get rid of it like they thought they could.
Yeah, they thought they could in the Enlightenment. They thought, okay, people, we can just have reason and rational thought, and we can get rid of all this stuff. But even in the Enlightenment, even in the French Revolution, they brought the goddess Liberty into the church, right? They still had these religious rituals that they did through all of it. Pop another clip out. Let's see. I don't even know which ones I got in there. There was one where
you're the worst.
Well, there's one where I should have labeled them, but there's one where he talks about why Buddhism didn't fulfill him. Why it was because he used to be a Buddhist and he used to think like everyone has the Christ in them, and he talks about how this just didn't work. It was just empty and hollow when it came down to it. I just pick another one. Who cares?
We'll just go for this one, I guess.
Narrowly, this came about. It is an adaptation whose fundamental nature is intersubjective. It is between people. And that what we experience as individual consciousness evolves later. Once you have a tool that lets you tap in.
Well, famous last words of Anthony. I should have labeled them.
Yeah, I will next time. You got to realize when I'm doing this, guys, I'm driving into work listening to this at 5 a.m. Just randomly. I was like, oh, let me check this out. And I thought it was going to be a throwaway conversation. And I start hearing them talk about stuff. And I'm like, let me screen record. This might be a good conversation. You got to realize what we do for this show. Usually we don't know what the hell we're going to talk about until the day of. And then the day of, I'm scrolling news stories to see if something's going to pop up that we could talk about.
And then he tells me what he thinks is going to be the big topic. And on my break at work, I quick make the thumbnail on the stream. And then we go and talk about something else entirely. I screw up the stream. And now we have to redo it all.
Well, you got to realize how often a big news story pops up at 3 p.m. after we made the thumbnail, made the link and all that. Like tonight's story, the Bucker thing, that article popped up. Anthony Stein tweeted it out 10 minutes before going on air.
Mm-hmm. And I saw that come through, and I'm like, oh, man.
10 minutes before we go on air, Anthony Stein tweeted it, and I'm like, this was supposed to be the show tonight.
Adrian, no wonder this show seems like a stream of consciousness high on Zen in desperation.
Desperation, what it is. So that's how a show comes together, guys. Like we don't ever show prep is the morning of. We're like, what do you want to talk about?
And typically whenever it's 10 minutes till and we're trying to figure out a subject, typically that's also when I get the link for the stream. I'm just like, oh yeah, by the way, I can join.
Next 8 minutes before air. You guys want to send me the link?
Yeah.
So this one is a good clip. Let's play it.
Into somebody else's mindset, being able to be of two minds and have an argument within your own head, for example, is extremely useful. But we by putting the individual consciousness first, we create a problem because it's a very expensive way of getting to anything. Why would selection have done that? And the answer is because you can't do it with another person. We have to be able to do exactly what we're doing now. I have to be able to put an abstract idea into your mind using language, and we have to actually hold that idea between us in order to have a discussion about it. And the point is, well, the utility of that is obvious, right? The utility of personal consciousness is less so. It is useful, but if we imagine that it evolves to facilitate the shared mindset of a lineage of people first, then it makes a great deal more sense. And of course, taps right into questions of shared religious belief.
In a sense, I hope I was listening properly to everything else you said, because I began to disagree when you spoke of individual consciousness as the predetermining or predeterminate condition. If I were able to articulate it, then I would it's due some kind of Nobel Prize, wouldn't I? So I'll do my best. I consider consciousness to be the prima materia of all reality, from which material reality has evolved. The reason that there are archetypes, whether they are
I consider consciousness to be the prima reality, which is God at the burning bush saying, I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like God is being itself. consciousness is so it's no consciousness doesn't evolve. Consciousness exists before anything.
It is existence.
It is existence. Like it's very crazy that Russell picked up on that. Go ahead. You can keep it up on screen because I'm just gonna keep it in play.
Geometric, mathematical, or the semantic, linguistic, and intercommunicative, as you described, using, it seems to me, at least some of the arguments that Noah Harari advances in that Sapiens book, that it's about the exchange of concepts and the ability to successfully track and kill a mammoth. And then from this flows naturally Purgo. I don't feel that. And indeed, this notion of feeling as opposed to the kind of gymnastics of the intellect, I think too becomes fundamental. Because in Christianity, because of all its familiarity, it's quite easy, and speaking personally, to dismiss it and to sort of regard it only through a pejorative light as a sort of a set of institutions that are about conditioning, that it's for people that are either utterly banal or dreadfully hysterical, and that it drowns itself out in its own ubiquity. And like someone like me, I'd be much more attracted to the exoticism of the Vedas or Tao Zen or some irresolvable koan. But somehow, and you alluded to this earlier, Brett, the efficacy of Christianity in inducing states, and in this primary notion, which I'd love to see how you unpack using sort of, as we've discussed on previous occasions, materialistic vernacular. The ability to see the self, the persona, as the kind of the first object accrued by a materialistic mindset, and to transcend it using either epistemology or the practice, is the function of Christianity. And it's not sort of there very plainly, that it's telling you, if you don't transcend this set of beliefs, you will live your life in pursuit of material goals. Material goals will lead to individualism. Individualism will lead to despair. Now, I know Christianity is not unique in that offering. It sort of sounds kind of Buddhist even when I'm saying it. But what I feel when it comes to, like, this is obviously a C.S. Lewis argument, that the reason you can't see God in space is because the thing you're looking from is God. The thing you're looking from is, and of itself, God. It's already present. And like speaking as a sort of a recent convert, and with the concomitant zeal that one might assume would accompany that, what I've felt is almost like a new facility has been turned on, in this case wanted, but usually unwanted in the case of Apple, some new upgrade on your phone that's normally going to mean that you've got to buy a new charger or delete a bunch of emails, or some photos have got to go now. What I feel like is, since the event, I speak as someone who's taken, obviously, a lot of drugs. And when you are interested in drugs and psychedelics, and then if you're a drug addict, you'll sort of always, I'm speaking personally, but I've done a lot of research when it comes to sort of communication with other drug addicts, some sort of T.S. Eliot-like longing, Brett. Like, when's it going to actually be it? Is this going to be it? Is this actually going to be it? When is it going to be love? When is it going to be God? When is it going to be salvation and resolution? And like, you take LSD and I'm still there. You take heroin and I'm still there. You take crack, you go to Nepal, you meet the Dalai Lama.
He's talking about the longing for heaven in your heart. He's talking about Surprised by Joy, where C.S. Lewis talks about this. He goes, the greatest moment of your life, you have this overwhelming feeling of happiness, but it feels like an arrow pointing toward heaven. Like, it feels like an arrow that's pointing towards something greater, like the deepest longing joy that's eternal. So he's like, yeah, okay, so you take LSD, you take heroin, and you feel that momentarily, but it still doesn't feel like it. Like, there's still something you're longing for. And the way he's almost like dismissive of Brett's, because Brett thinks he's going to outsmart him, and he's just like, Brett, I've been through this. Like, I went through Buddhism, and it just didn't fulfill this understanding of what I've found in the Gospels.
Yeah, I think that they're both approaching it from a very different perspective. Brett's being very technical in his language. Russell's being, I would say, at least is like Thomas, kind of loose in his language. Where I think that's where you're, Rob. You're kind of like, what are you trying to exactly?
He just throws words against the wall.
Yeah, it is.
Like-
It is a bit confusing, but I think I see what he's saying, and I agree with him in the sense that, like, we all desire something greater than ourselves. We want to be fully known and fully loved. And if people try to pursue that through an avenue of materialism, like his example, whether that be drugs or pornography, fill in the blank, it's not going to satisfy. It's just lacking. And the reality is that if you're going to say that that desire for like infinite love or infinite fulfillment is just a byproduct of evolutionary development, that's not a very good answer. That's a very depressing answer, because that what that means is that you will never be able to be satisfied. Plus, it doesn't explain truly fundamentally how you got this hole, if
yeah.
you will, in your heart. You can say, well, okay, it evolved. But again, I would just throw back at Brett, okay, is that absolute truth? Like, in your evolutionary system, do you believe that there is such a thing as absolute truth? And if you do you believe that that's evolution? And then the reality is if you say yes to any of those, like, yes, there's absolute truth, whether it's morals or evolution or fill in the blank, then where does that come from? That desire for absolute truth and knowing absolute truth is the same as wanting absolute goodness. And it has to be somebody.
If there's an evolutionary advantage to that, why are we the only species with it?
Exactly. That's the thing, is it's like the intellect
That's a good point,
craves
Rob.
truth and the will craves the objective good. And we're all desiring the objective good. Like, whenever, even in sin, right? Sin is the misuse of some good, right? So whether it's a person who struggles with lust, they see the objective good in relationships and even in procreation, right? But they misuse it to their own destruction, right? Fill in the blank with all the other sins. We desire good, and so therefore LSD is not going to work, drugs aren't going to work. But where is that objective good? If it doesn't exist, then it's sad.
And the moral argument there, it also is so important, because you have two instincts in every situation. Let's say you come upon a woman who's being raped. You have the fight or flight instinct. Like, so you have the run to save myself. Or like, say there's a fire, right?
Yeah.
You have the flight instinct, and then you have something in you telling you go save people. Now, there's those two, but the thing that has to make the decision of which to do, one is sacrificing yourself. There's absolutely no evolutionary advantage to going and running in that building, especially if it's not your bloodline. Like, I can see
it's not your kids, yeah.
If it's your kids, I can understand it, but there's still something in us that will want to go in, and even when you see every person you admire, I don't think people pick up on this enough. If there's a person you admire, the thing you admire in that person is Christ. Yeah. Like that, the thing in that person, and that could be a very subtle thing, but it's usually like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's trying to live a life of Christian heroic virtue. It doesn't matter. It can be just anybody, but anytime somebody does the right thing, you're seeing Christ in them. So you can have Christ figures in your life, and they don't even know what they're doing. They just have this. I think it's just left over from cultural Christianity, where we have this instinct to do what's right and be self-sacrificial a little bit.
And if you think of it, like, you could write off those instances of heroism and self-sacrifice as just, basically someone being broken, right? Like, they're not following what is evolutionary advantageous. They're one of those, one-offs. But then why do we as a species turn those people into the heroes that we tell our kids about?
Exactly.
We want to become like them. We want our children to become like that. Like, if we succeeded, you'd almost wipe out the human species because of it. So there's no evolutionary advantage there.
Well, part of the reason our culture is falling apart is because we're lifting up the wrong heroes now, right? Like, you see all the stories we're talking, because so much of this has to do with stories, because we see life through a story. Everything is through a story. It's just the way our brains work. So the stories we're telling in our culture today, we're holding up these heroes who are just so distorted. Like, it's one thing to have a hero arc where the person starts broken and then they have some some road to redemption. But
Yeah.
the stories we're telling now are just so twisted and warped. We're trying to lift up the villain and make it like they're,
we're lifting up the individuals who live according to the evolutionary theory.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at well, just any any rapper, for instance,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they
Yeah.
it's all about natural selection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the hood is. And when we started holding that up, civilization has started to collapse. Whereas
Completely.
civilization was only created by us suppressing any, not that I believe in
Any evolutionary
instinct,
instinct,
but like that had to be
instinct.
suppressed to
Yes.
create civilization.
Christianity is the antithesis of evolution.
Mhm.
It is to suppress every
Civilization
instinct.
itself is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you're suppressing every biological instinct you have to be selfish for your own survival,
Mhm.
to lay your life down as a sacrifice for others. It makes absolutely no sense. And Brett will try to say, well, there's something evolutionary advantageous for the species to do that. But I don't care. Even the way language develops.
And that's not the way evolution works. Evolution works by, supposedly
The individual.
by individuals, surviving and passing on their, advantageous mutations.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not civilizational. That's not how it.
Yeah, that's why no
how-
other, like even apes that live in community are still selfish. But it's just, it makes no sense. Everything is upside down with the Christian worldview.
Mhm.
You're suppressing every one of these instincts to just be selfish. Because if Christianity is not true in reality, like I have it's either the Eucharist is really Christ or nihilism. Like there's no in between for me. It's either that is Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, or drink and be merry, for tomorrow you die.
Yeah,
because
there
this
is no
it.
in between.
There is no meaning. There is nothing other than Christ. It's like that's it. It's nothing else makes sense.
And it only works for. I mean, it works obviously best for Catholicism, but only works for really the apostolic churches. Like, that's why Protestantism leads to atheism. Because when you can decide what's true and not true, then Christianity loses everything.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think we need to start hammering down with Protestants is absolute truth. Like, is there or is there not absolute truth? Because they try to get off in their whole thing is
the whole
just
non-essentials
they're not like, as long as I trust in Jesus, I'm good. And it's funny, I want to get a Protestant on just to start hammering them on the same-sex question, because you start poking them with that, and all of a sudden the rules change for them. No, that's the one sin you can't just trust in God for forgiveness for. It's pretty funny. Let's play one more clip. Let's play one more clip. Let's see what we got. There was one where he actually makes fun of Brett trying to make it about evolution, and I'm hoping this is what you pick.
Well, okay, so we got another 6.5 minute long one, which I think actually is just you sent that one twice, or we have that one that I tried playing at the beginning.
Let's go with
you
that
said
one.
was the end. Okay.
But that thing is, I think, as grave a threat to humanity as there has ever been. And when I say that I think this religious revival is an attempt to reboot the last thing that worked, that is not in and of itself an argument against it. In fact, I would argue that's probably an ancient historical pattern for our species. And the only reason that I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do at this moment is that the religious traditions in question evolved in a world we don't live in anymore. And so I'm afraid that although they contain many things that are superior to the system that we are living in, they are inadequate as presented.
But this will be an adaptation and part of an ongoing evolutionary flow.
Let's hope.
Therefore will not.
Anthony, what happened to Anthony?
I was like, R.I.P. Where'd Anthony go?
Huh?
I'll
Did the Russians finally take out New York? I hope not. Oh no! Now he's gone.
He probably exited himself.
I'm just glad he didn't pull a Jason and end the stream.
Bro,
I was able to hear you guys the whole time. I don't know what the heck
that's
happened.
not good.
this is a really interesting part because he's about to say something. I think this will lead to a good conversation. Go ahead.
Be necessarily a sort of an atavistic throwback flux,
Well-
but a remodification and not repurposing, but utilization temporally through time of those principles. Indeed, isn't what we're experiencing now this sort of this new banalized tyranny, this sort of friendly Kafka-esque bureaucratic nightmare? You know, where, like, just to give you a clear example, when YouTube, if you try to go, excuse me, why have you done that? Like, the team have decided that you have violated our community guidelines. Do try again later. You know, it's like, who am I talking to? Hello, hello, like sort of 1960s sci-fi
100%.
horror. So isn't what they're terrified of, and this is sort of, again, Martin Gurry stuff from his book, you know, The Revolt of the Public, like, oh no, the potential now exists for mass decentralization and incredible radical overthrow of our systems of power. In fact, it's already happening, whether it's examples like Occupy or the Arab Spring or Napster. There are countless examples of it working, or the emergence of someone like Bobby Kennedy, or indeed Trump and Twitter, or Elon acquiring X, the emergence of Tucker. They're realizing that independent media is very dangerous, and if it organically, you're the evolutionary biologist, wouldn't the next natural step for it to become a set of political alliances, decentralized but unified political alliances, where you would go, well, we want to run our community.
You can
on
pause
these
this. I'll
principles,
try to
and obviously,
explain
Russell, I'm not
his
Christian,
point
and
in
obviously, Russell-
English. So what he's saying is,
Whoa. You're going to be the one translating something into English?
yeah, which is amazing because what he's
Oh,
getting
gosh.
at. So Brett was leading it up, saying, I don't think, you know, the thing that we're looking at in the past, I don't think it will function in the world properly because it's not coming up in the world that it came up in, right? So, and then what
there's truth to that. I mean,
Yes.
there is.
So, well, to the point with that, I would say the rebirth of the church, like the resurrection after the passion, will not look like it did in the first century. It will look different, but it will still be Catholic, right?
Yeah.
It will still be Catholic. It will just look slightly different. But what Russell was saying is the very thing they're claiming they're afraid of with religious institutions claiming this power, they are now becoming the tyrants to stop it. So they're, you know, through YouTube and, you know, like, you know, you can't say this, you can't say this. They are the new religious tyrants, and you can be excommunicated through this new church. Like it's essentially what he said.
Instead of an inquisition, you have, like he said, you have the community guidelines team.
And
Same
you get
thing.
canceled.
Just
Yeah.
way less cool name.
Did you guys watch the it was the Oxford debate between, I forget his name, but it was that banjo player and Nancy Pelosi that took place over the last week?
No.
It blew up. Honestly, it's kind of a shame we didn't talk about it on this show because it's pretty big right now. But so at the Oxford Union, right, they have those famous like 2v2 debates with the whole team, etc. Old school debates, and they were debating the subject of populism. And this guy, again, I forget his name, but he's a banjo player, like long hair and stuff like that. He was young guy, probably like at max in his early 30s, and he just goes right at her, talking about how whether it's big government, big media, big tech, big pharma, etc., right? It's created this entire tyrannical authoritarian institution that has basically replaced like authoritarian religious structures, right? Or kings, you know, and emperors of the past, etc. But it's all under this fake guise of you have a choice, this is protecting democracy, yada yada yada. And he goes in there, basically dismantles it, and it's pretty epic. Like, actually go and check it out. Like, his speech is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But what he's resonating with, I think, is what Russell's talking about, which is that man has this deep desire, right, to, on the one hand, right, feel a part of something, but on the other hand, he doesn't want to be led around by stuff that he knows isn't right.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this whole system, whether you want to say it came through evolution or what have you, is not fulfilling man. And it's not a fulfillment of our flesh. The system has given us promiscuity and immorality, right? And people have indulged in that, but that's not satisfied that big desire that we've been talking about. And so whether it's people who are going like hard down core the political stream or through the religious avenue, something has to change. which tells us that it's not going to be like his example of, well, it's just picking old truths and putting them into your time and it's not going to work. Doesn't work. A tree can disprove your argument. A tree is always a tree. It has good days and it has bad days. There's the 4 seasons, etc. But there's always going to be some revitalization.
I think what Brett is missing is history. So he's a molecular biologist, he's an evolutionary biologist. What he doesn't grasp is history, and what he doesn't understand is the cultures that existed before Christianity were nothing like Christianity whatsoever. So if they evolved into that, like what is you're talking about evolution producing the Bible? What are you talking about, Brett? Like, it's absurd. Do you understand that when Caesar comes back into Rome, he brags about murdering 1 million people? Like, and it's a triumph. I murdered 1 million people. Look at how we would look at that today. We look at the last guy who murdered 1 million people, and it's like he's the most evil person. Only a Christian culture would claim that World War II bad guy was bad. Like,
yeah, and there's like an objective reason for him being bad.
Yeah, and it's like, Brett, you of all people with your
World War II good guys were bad too, though. Just
yeah, but that's true. I actually, when I had Joe over after we got off air, he was shit.
Oh no,
dude, he was so drunk, and he's like, what do you think? You really don't think the world will look better if the other side won? He's like, come on, look at the decay around us. He's like, it might look a little bit better if the other side won.
No, Joe, you're sounding like another Joe right now.
So, only a Christian culture can say what he did in those in those camps was objectively wrong. Any other culture would just go, okay, this is just what we do with our enemies, right? We only see it as objectively wrong through the Christian lens. Even the Jews that are pitching that story to us of how horrific it was are doing so because they are counting on a Christian conscience, a culture with a Christian conscience,
right? Because because the Jewish conscience, if roles had been reversed, would have been totally okay with it.
Yeah,
100%.
Utilitarian.
Just think about Lila Rose over the last weekend. She's been putting up on a lot of her social media discussions about, like, okay, if you were living in the Roman period, in a pre-Christian period, how were women treated, right? Kind of going 180 back to what we originally were talking about, right? Men who were very wealthy were extremely promiscuous, right? They would go around, etc. And then women were treated essentially just as chattel, right? That was pretty much all they were. Yeah, that was it. And it was horrible. I mean, one example she didn't even mention, but like is fairly well known: gluttony in the Roman Empire. Romans who were extremely wealthy,
vomitoriums, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they would try to impress one another by saying, "Wow, I have ingested so much food that I can vomit." It's really one of the areas where I was thinking, "Wow, Satan must have just been laughing to death that he can get a creature made in the image and likeness of God to gorge himself on matter, to vomit it back out just to prove that he's richer than his other fellow man."
It was more than that. It was to prove he was richer, then make room to go in and gorge himself again.
Exactly. It's pathetic. But see, we say that that's pathetic, and we just sit back and we're just like, wow, even if I didn't believe in like the cross, etc., that's stupid. Like, why would you be doing that just to like prove a point? The reality is that the natural law is true, and there has to be a source for it. And so if the guy that, if Brent is going on and on about like, this is just an evolutionary activity, it's not satisfying. Yeah. It's not satisfying because
and it also wouldn't explain. Okay, so now if Christianity comes about through evolution, why does the collapse of Christianity come?
Exactly.
Right? Like all right, so you're trying to say all these
why are we going back?
Yeah, like why
evolution
are we
doesn't go back?
Yeah, we're devolving.
Look at what's his name, Dylan Mulvaney, right? Okay, so he is an icon in which the secular world tried to force you to see as a hero. So going to your point about heroes, his story is lame. There's nothing inspiring about it, but they're like, he's a hero. He's so brave for coming out. They did the same thing with Bruce Jenner, right? He was so brave. He came out and did all this.
Doing the same thing with that hermit.
Exactly. But see, evolutionarily speaking, their actions, it doesn't make any sense to say they were brave. Why? Because they're engaging in activity in which is not going to reproduce the species and make it stronger and stronger for the
Well,
next era.
that's how
It's
you
downgrading
know. That's how you know there's no gay gene. You're not born gay. If you were
Exactly.
born gay, evolution, if it exists, would breed it out. Like, how would you ever reproduce that gene?
If you get your genes from your parents and your parents had you, doesn't sound like they were gay. So therefore, what did they
The
give
big
you?
flip is you got to ask somebody that's pro-choice. You say, okay, so if we did discover the gay gene and people found out their child was gay in the womb, would you
Can you
still
abort
support
them?
them? Because men would be like, get that kid out of there. And it would be a mass genocide of gay people. That's what would happen.
But like abortion, contraception, all these are good points to talk about. Like, okay, if it was just purely evolution, right, it doesn't really make sense because you want your species to evolve. You want them to
Yeah.
continue to go on. It's like with abortion. People who want to say, oh, well, it's not a baby. Okay, every abortion that takes place, right, as well as a miscarriage, a body has to be removed from the female. What is that?
Yeah, if evolution was true, why would any creature kill its offspring? Like,
Exactly.
why would a
Well,
woman want to destroy her offspring?
Her own
it-
offspring. Yeah.
If evolution is true, yeah, maybe abortion doesn't make as much sense, but like the Spartan practice of infanticide does.
Yeah,
if evolution is true, then actually abortion should be illegal, but you should be able to kill a 1-year-old who's sickly.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That would be the more logical progression, which is, ironically what every single communist regime has done, which they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, you're too sick or you're feeble, you're crippled, let's get rid of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty preposterous evolution. It doesn't make it doesn't make logical sense. It's just,
And it doesn't,
especially in the context of Christianity.
and you're right, it leads to nihilism because like if everything really does come down to just random chance, which again, you just need to ask one question, which is random chance, like all this, if it's random chance, is that true? Which if it is, that sets off a whole litany. But if there is no reason, then why should we care? Why would you spend your life trying to figure out why we're here? To what end?
Yeah.
Because
to what end?
what?
Other
So you
than-
can make money? That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And
Make profit.
for Christians who believe in the whole theistic evolution, like if we can show like that evolution, the processes of evolution doesn't make sense, why would God use it?
Yeah.
Like what?
Fawaz brought up a really good point to us about the theistic evolutionists. It's like, okay, you guys are just saying theistic evolution and you're showing us how natural selection happens. And you're like, well, that's just the process God you chose to do. But we're showing you all the holes in the argument and you're not giving us the alternative for how it actually worked. It's like, okay,
But
well,
does, like any like serious major scientists at this point really buy the entire evolutionary worldview? Like that's the
No,
thing. I
it's
feel like that
preposterous.
it's like new atheism in the sense that it was so jointly tied at the hip, and new atheism has sputtered off. And as science and technology has continued to advance, there's philosophical questions and scientific questions that are not being answered by evolution.
Yeah.
You had a good run, but it looks like it's over.
Yeah, even Tucker brought that up when he was talking to Rogan. He's like,
Exactly.
They basically, like, nobody even pays attention to Darwinian evolution anymore. It's pretty
Yeah.
silly. All right, guys, this was a fun one. Yeah, Rob, I'm sorry, man. Sorry about the.
I'm not getting to it tonight. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah,
But
it's late. All right, man. We will. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Maybe we'll get Kale on. I'll see what Kale's up to, and we'll see. We'll see. Something will come up Thursday. It always does.
yep, sounds good.
And then you're going away this weekend, right, Rob?
Well, I mean, the campground's like 45 minutes away, but yeah, I'll be camping all weekend.
I
Won't
am
even
too.
have power.
I'll be on.
Won't
the
even
boat
have
all
power.
weekend.
I'll be in.
Do you have-
I'll be in
Oh,
St.
God.
Mary's, Kansas. So if any of y'all viewers are out there, come say hi. I'll be in St. Mary's, Kansas Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Rob, do you have a battery pack you bring with you?
I have a small one, like one to charge our phones and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's all you really need. You could buy like a jumper pack to jump your car, and those all have USB ports and outlets on them now and stuff. They're like $80. They're pretty. I bring them when I go on the boat. I bring them. I can run my
And-
coffee pot on it.
I have like four solar panels too, so we'll be fine.
Yeah. All right, boys. This is a fun one. We will talk on Thursday. Oh, Nick,
Yeah.
you won't be here Thursday, right?
Well, I'll double check because actually, like when I sent you that earlier, I finally found out in between then. I think my flight on the reason was I was like, I got to hit the bed on Thursday night to get up early, but I think the flight actually might be like mid morning, so I'll let you know.
So if Kale can join, you want to jump on? We'll do that together.
Yeah, I'll let you know by tomorrow for sure.
Okay, excellent.
So this weekend's your confirmation, right?
Yeah, conditional confirmation.
Well, if I don't see you Thursday, good luck with that.
Yeah,
not luck, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, honestly, it is pretty epic just because it's like, 1, it's in St. Mary's, Kansas. 2, I know it'll be legit finally. And then 3, it's by Bishop Tessier is one of the original OG 9 seminarians that got this entire process started. So it's pretty cool.
Is he the one that wrote the long biography?
He is the one. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna take my copies of the biography up and be like, hey, yo, you wanna sign these?
Copies?
Yeah, I have a few copies. If you were gifted to me,
dude, they're 800 pages a piece. That's got to be like $50 in luggage.
Bro, you guys don't even see the wall of books that I have. I'm in like a little corner right here.
You need to change it so you can compete with Josh.
Oh, I could easily compete with. I could compete with Lofton anytime, except the only difference between me and Lofton is that
they're
I
not
read
cardboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Your books are
I'm
real.
not chilling for views.
All right, man. Let's go. We'll see you guys later.
Have a good night, everyone.